Would Eli Wyms really be able to plead to only a reckless discharge of a firearm on the Lincoln lawyer?
You got anything on Eli Wyms?
Just a docket entry. Attempted murder of a police officer, multiple counts.
Multiple? Oh, that's ambitious.
Attempted murder on a peace officer is a life sentence with the possibility of parole, but the inmate who's convicted of that will have to serve at least 15 years in state prison.
Guy's a vet?
Twice decorated in Iraq. A sniper. Wife kicked him out, case of high life later. He's sleeping it off in a truck in Topanga State Park. Sheriff's department got reports of gunfire, so they sent a cruiser out to investigate. But when the deputy called it in, all hell broke loose. 3 hours and 90-some rounds later, they had Wyms in custody. It's a miracle nobody was hit.
In order to prove that the defendant committed an attempted murder, the prosecutor has to prove that the defendant intended to commit just that, the murder. As a prosecutor, one of your biggest concerns is always going to be, can we prove that he intended to commit the underlying crime? What Wyms claims to Mickey Holler is that he's a veteran and a sniper, and that if he wanted to shoot the officers, he easily could have.
Eli, you're in serious trouble. Attempted murder of a peace officer, that's 20 to life. No!
I can hit a target from 800 yards. You don't think I would have hit those cops if I wanted to?
Well, there are a few problems. The way it would really go at trial is the prosecutor would call the police officers in this case. They would talk about how Wyms shot over 90 rounds at them. And as we learned in a later episode, shot out a window to one of the police cars. The prosecutor would say in turn that taking that number of shots and shooting close enough to the peace officers that you hit their car shows that you intended to actually kill those particular officers. A prosecutor in this case is simply not going to call, nor can they call the defendant. Nor would they put on any information about the defendant's prior sniper history or how good of a shot he was. Now, Wyms would have to take the stand on the other side and say that, in fact, he's such a good shot that he never intended to kill the officers, but instead intended to shoot at them for some other reason. Now, Mickey Holler uses this, he's a vet, he's a sniper, to basically argue to the prosecutor, you should get rid of the attempted murder charge, and you should go with a charge, what they call in the show, reckless discharge of a firearm.
He wants this all behind him. So do I, and so do you, Coach.
Look, I don't have much wiggle room here. He shot at cops.
Did he? No, you said it yourself. The guy's a trained sniper. Twice decorated. He was shooting at the cops, they beat that. The lights startled him. Instant kicked in. He fired some warning shots.
90 rounds of warning shots?
Your trial is a story, Coach. You want to hear the story I'm going to tell?
No, but you're gonna tell it anyway.
It's about a man who served his country with bravery and honor. A hero who saved the lives of 7 other soldiers when their convoy was ambushed outside of Ramadi. I'll get every single one of those soldiers to testify if I have to.
Now, it's an interesting argument he makes, and it's an argument that a prosecutor will hear from a defense attorney. And in this particular show, the prosecutor goes along with it and gives him a grossly negligent discharge of a firearm under Penal Code Section 246.3. And the total sentence under 246.3 is, in fact, 3 years.
I got the prosecutor to drop the charges to 1 count of reckless discharge of a firearm.
What does that mean?
It's 3 years. Good behavior, you'll be out in 1.
But the reality is, a prosecutor is never going to resolve this for a 246.3. The intermediate charge on this case that would absolutely be brought is assault on a peace officer with a firearm. Additionally, the prosecutor will allege that the defendant discharged a firearm during the course of that particular felony. So on 1 count alone of assault on a peace officer with a firearm with a discharge, the defendant would be subject to a penalty of 28 years. As we can see in the episode, the defendant has at least 4 separate charges for attempted murder, meaning the prosecutor could probably bring at least 4 charges of assault on a peace officer with a discharge of a firearm. There is no way that a prosecutor would not try to resolve this case, at the minimum, for an assault on a peace officer with a firearm with a discharge, particularly given that the shots were close to the officers, the number of shots, and the fact that at least one of those shots broke out the windshield of one of the cars.
Are you crazy, Eli? You're actually crazy. Because only someone with a serious mental illness would think they can open fire on a bunch of cops, then walk out the door a free man. Now, this is the best deal you're ever gonna get. You don't want it? Fine. Stay here, because this is where you belong. Okay. I'll do the year. Good. Good. That's a smart thing to do.
Now, a second issue I see discussed quite a bit online relates to the status of Eli Wyms and the fact that Jerry declared a doubt as to his competency and put him in a psych home.
How did Jerry end up with a case?
Beats me. I figured he needed the pro bono hours,
And then he sent the guy out to county for a competency evaluation.
which just prolonged it even more. From what the PD told me, Wyms was a pain in the ass, but he was competent. All they did at county was pump him full of drugs. If you want to plead it out, I'm all ears.
Under 1368, when a doubt is declared, criminal proceedings are suspended. In this case, Mickey Holler goes and negotiates a deal with the DA for that 246.3 for 3 years. But the reality is that until the defendant is deemed competent, he cannot resolve his case, nor can he actually go to trial. He would have to remain in the psych ward. And there's no way that Mickey Holler could negotiate a deal on Eli Wyms' behalf, let alone that Wyms could actually enter the plea deal. He can't, because he would still be incompetent. The other issue that people talk about online is, why did Jerry put him in the psych ward?
Eli, I'm here to help you.
Yeah, that's what Jerry said. And then he left me here.
How did that help the case with Trevor Elliott? And the true answer is, from an attorney's perspective, is it didn't help him at all. The reality is, when Mickey Holler did the trial, he didn't have to call Wyms or any of the witnesses to Wyms' case. He could build the fact that Wyms' GSR was in the back of that particular patrol car through the officer. And in fact, keeping Wyms in the psychiatric ward had no practical or real effect on the actual underlying trial. Jerry could never call Wyms in Trevor Elliott's trial to talk about the discharge of his firearms for a couple reasons. One is it would directly violate Wyms' Fifth Amendment rights. There's no way Wyms would ever testify in the Elliott trial and talk about his own discharging of a firearm while his case was pending. And his case was still pending when the Elliott trial went. And second, it would create a clear conflict of interest for Jerry, because Jerry cannot pit one client against another. He cannot have Wyms testify about his conduct and shooting at the police officers, which would inculpate him and make him appear guilty on the assault on a peace officer with a firearm in order to benefit his other client, Trevor Elliott. The only way I see it being an advantage for Jerry to declare a doubt on Wyms and put him in the psych ward rather than resolve his case is to give a clue to whatever attorney would come on later about Wyms' existence. But the reality is there are so many better ways to do that than to leave one little piece out there and hope that another attorney finds it. Overall grade of realism and accuracy under California law here is, I'm going to give it a D to a D minus. If you like this particular episode, please like and subscribe. I'm a small channel, I'm new on YouTube, and I'm trying to grow. I'm going to do additional evaluations of Lincoln lawyers, so be on the lookout for those in the coming weeks and months ahead. And if there are other TV shows or questions you have in general, leave them in the comments and I'll address them.